All right, there we go. Having a few issues here, but we're to it. Playing a little Zelda. Hitting the nostalgic feels. But what do we got for the news? I do want to finish that Theo Vaughn bit today. We almost made it halfway through. That was more interested in that than I thought I would be. Mainly because it's just digging up memories from 2020. It's like, man, I've already forgotten about a lot of the stuff, and I paid attention very closely to that shit. Because I have asthma, and I never got a straight answer when it was first coming out, and that's what kind of tickled my alarms. I'm like, well, nobody knows, and there seems to be a lot of lies. Why are there lies? And from there, it was all downhill. So what do we got today? And I don't know why this is doing this. It's going to like theater mode. Oh, yeah, make sure my mic's on first. Got to do housekeeping. Got to do all that. All right, I am not prepared today. Look at me! In theater mode, I think when I go full screen though. Yeah, okay, we good. I am not with it today. Get the headset on, Nick. Here we go.
Two big election stories.
Let's go.
First, in the race for Florida's open district 87th seat, Democratic candidate Emily Gregory prevailed over Trump-backed financial advisor John Maples.
Gregory, a small business owner, flipped the Florida House district that includes part of Palm Beach County and President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort.
Gregory received more than 51% of the vote, while Maples had just less than 49% backing. Tuesday's election saw more than 95% of voter turnout. Trump himself voted by mail, despite saying and criticizing the method on Monday, calling it, quote, mail-in cheating.
Also on Tuesday, the University of Southern California canceled a gubernatorial debate for established Democratic candidates of color who didn't meet the criteria to participate, accused USC of discrimination. USC defended the selection formula they used, denying allegations of bias. The university said in a statement, quote, selection criteria have created a significant distraction from the issues that matter to voters.
A group of 50 public policy and social science scholars from across the country defended the professor who developed the criteria and said, quote, we urge USC to stand firm in rejecting all efforts to apply political pressure on its faculty and its overall academic mission. Whereas legislative leaders, including chairs of the Black and Latino caucuses, said, quote, if USC does not do the right thing, we call on California voters to boycott this debate. If the university will not give voters a fair shot at evaluating everyone running for governor, voters should find other ways to learn about candidates.
This story sparked reactions on social media. Substack writer Wesley Yang wrote on X, this is not funny. This is disturbing. Knowing Wesley Yang as I do, he's objecting to the debate being
I was like,
canceled.
which side is he on? Okay.
He's objecting to it being canceled because the four candidates didn't make it based on the criteria. I mean, come on.
Can I paint the picture a little bit better? I mean, I think that's vaguely, that sounds insane. I read it too, like, what are they talking about? So there's a large group of people running for Gavin Newsom's seat. He can't obviously hold it again. There's 8 people running. There's 2 Republicans. So 8 Democrats.
The top 2 right now are Republicans.
Yeah, 8. We talked about this. So there's 8
great.
Democrats and 2 Republicans. So 6 of the candidates were going to be included in the debate, and that's the bottom line. The 2 Republicans were always going to be included, and then 4.
Because Stone Cold said so.
Or others. And I think what happened is that 2 of the Dems that were picked were people that were polling the highest. So you would think based on merit, like you like to argue, merit should be number 1, that they should be included. But a third person who was polling just as low as the people of color, who's backed really highly by Silicon Valley and has a ton of money, was included as that third candidate to be on stage. And people were like, why did you pick this guy? His name is Matt Mahan. He's a Democrat. Matt Mann. Like, he's also included. And people were like,
the mayor of San Jose.
Right, but how did he get to skip the line, polling just as low as other people of color in the race, just because he has a lot of money? So that's a legitimate question. And then they started adding in, we added in funding and support. And it's like, okay, but people are asking a real question. If it's based on merit, why didn't we just go with the third in line who was polling third highest rather than letting Matt Mann?
I mean, I guess if they actually took someone who was polling lower than someone else, that's probably a mistake. I mean, it's an average of the most recent polls or whatever, so you can manipulate they're all polling so lowly outside the top ones that it's probably easy to cheat it one way or the other to make it look like this person, that person. I don't have strong. I mean, California is very weird how it does
That
elections.
is.
You
There's a
know,
lot
Yeah, I realize my GPU, when I bog it down like that, it gets choppy, so I'm just testing stuff.
going
ballots with 800 questions on it. Obviously, the top two are going on to the general election, so the prospect Democrats got to consolidate in a hurry.
on. Right. They need to have a conversation amongst all 8 of them and say, okay, what are we doing? And you know, that doesn't mean remove everybody of color, but it also doesn't mean just because you have a ton of money and you're polling low that you need to stay in the race to divvy up the vote between Democrats. So
I suppose you're just think it's so hilarious Trump voted by a mail-in ballot.
I mean, that's ridiculous, especially for someone who thinks that mail-in ballots are cheating.
It is kind of funny.
I don't understand why you would also then mail in your ballot. You have to live the life that you talk about wanting other people to live. I mean, you can't lead in that way. It's like the person that says, don't follow what I do, just follow what I say.
Well, maybe Trump is in a very unique situation that shouldn't apply to the regular voters, that he's president of the United States and thus resides in the White House.
I love that you like to make exceptions for unique circumstances, because now we can talk about that Congress story that's coming up next about how they get all these fancy exceptions from airlines.
Well, that I want to.
Well, I mean, not everybody is president in the United States, so there is that.
Oh, you want to make exceptions? So then, I just want consistency from you. If Trump doesn't like mail-in voting, don't mail-in vote. Also, people don't like what Trump is doing.
But here's the thing, I actually kind of agree with her, because it's like, I just don't want mail-in voting. And I understand that it's like, man, you should still be able to vote if there's some weird, wild, extreme situation, but I'm trying to think of one, and maybe if you're sick in the hospital or something, is there some way to do it then? How does that work? Say you're like, because I was in the hospital for, I don't know, a month or two, I can't even remember, a while. And if it comes around to voting time, you just happen to have bad timing. What happens then? So I guess you could make the case for mail-in voting at that point, but I can't really think of anything beyond that. Being president of the United States, though, just for safety reasons, I guess that makes sense, right?
As a whole, because you see Mar-a-Lago now is in a district that's going to be run by a state house Democrat.
Okay, I guess I'm in the same hypocrisy. I don't like mail-in voting either, but I did mail in. I received my ballot in the mail.
What don't you like about it?
I didn't like that I also got 2 ballots, not 1 but 2 for the previous tenant.
No, yeah, I know a
like
few
there
people
might
that
be
got
something wrong with this system.
like two ballots.
I still get their mail all the time. I got their ballots. I don't know. Seems like maybe
We got
ballots being mailed out to everybody.
Ask the Heritage Foundation about that study I always cite.
I guess they didn't count
0.00%
They didn't count mine.
fraudulent voting going on. The Pentagon says it's making changes after a judge blocked its new rules for reporters, but some are arguing that the key issues still haven't been resolved. Stick around for that in my lens.
Yeah. I am Lord. What is it? I just realized I should be doing something. All right, here we go. What's today? 3/25. All right. Oh, I got my allergy shots and it just wears me out. It does. I'm going to need some coffee here in a little bit. All right, let's just do this one. Saudis urge Trump to keep fighting as Iran dismisses U.S. ceasefire plan. From the NYT.
Has reportedly sent a 15-point ceasefire plan to Iran aimed at bringing the war to an end.
According to the Associated Press, the plan was sent indirectly via Pakistani officials. An article from The Hill reads, the peace plan centered on sanctions relief, civilian nuclear cooperation, missile limits, a rollback of Iran's nuclear program, and monitoring by the International Atomic Energy Agency. It also includes opening up shipping access through the Strait of Hormuz.
However, Iran has seemingly dismissed the terms, with a top military official saying
nope.
The U.S. is only, quote, negotiating with itself, and adding, quote, until it is our will, nothing will go back to the way it was.
You know what's sad is you really just can't tell. We can't even trust our own government to tell us the truth, and we actually feel like Iran might be telling more truth than our government.
President Trump
That's a bad spot to be in.
told reporters on Tuesday that he, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio were all involved in the negotiations with the country. But Iran has pushed back on those claims, suggesting that Trump is attempting to calm down the financial and oil markets.
Other countries continue to weigh in on the conflict, with many of them advocating for peace. Some, though, such as Saudi Arabia, reportedly urging the Trump administration to keep the
Yeah, they're egging us on.
fight going. According to the New York Times, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has conveyed to Mr. Trump that he must press toward the destruction of Iran's hardline government, and he has argued that Iran poses a long-term threat to the Gulf that can only be eliminated by getting rid of the government.
Now, the Pentagon is also reportedly sending an additional 2,000 U.S. troops to the Middle East to assist with Operation Epic Fury. In total, the military has roughly 50,000 troops assigned to the operation as we approach 1 month since it has begun. I read that article about the Crown Prince pushing for it, and that was according to White House officials and people that heard the call. But then Saudi's putting out this other message, and they gave a statement in that same article saying that they like an imminent peaceful end. And so they're flip-flopping on what they want to say publicly versus privately. We're going off of
like sometimes the things these countries say in public doesn't match what they're saying behind closed doors. So
right.
Same could go for Iran, that they're saying they don't like this. Absolutely not. No.
Right, and the same thing can go for President Trump, who's saying that he spoke to Iranian officials, but then Iranian officials are saying they haven't spoke to him at all. But he says that they're ending the war, but now he's asking for $200 billion. It can go anyway, right? So we don't really know what's going on. It's been a lot of chaos since the start of the war about what steps are being taken and how there's going to be like everyone on the same page. I mean, even our allied Gulf nations that seem like they don't want to have war, but we keep pushing forward. They're getting bombed. I mean, because of Iran.
They have a long history of, publicly, like the leaders of the Gulf states, the leaders of the Muslim states will, all say, "Oh, bad America. We don't like America." They have to say that for their citizenry is very against America. The leaders are not, and behind closed doors, they're happy to have Trump take out.
That seems really interesting because they seem extremely well.
That was the case with Hamas. Publicly, they're like, "Oh, very bad, genocide, no good." Privately, they're like, "Please, can you kill more of them?
When you
don't
say
want them in our country."
But when you say the Gulf states, I'm thinking about also UAE, Qatar. I'm thinking about Saudi Arabia. They are going out of their way to welcome Americans there. So to say like, "Oh, we don't want Americans," like they rely on our tourist dollars, to be honest, to keep the country fueled in the way that it is right now with tourism. But that's a whole other thing. I think something that alarmed me is that we're quite literally possibly putting more troops in harm's way, because we sent 2,000 more troops there of paratroopers, which are people that are ready to deploy within 18 hours, I believe. They jump from planes and they can be in any situation, usually extreme circumstance. And so as the president finalizes this peace deal, I'm wondering why that type of crew is needed. Does he plan on having boots in the ground in Iran? What does that mean when you send 2,000 paratroopers that operate with that type of capacity to the Middle East? Right now, we have no information on where exactly they'll be, but we know that they can easily, and they're within, arm's distance from Iran, they can easily get sent to Iran. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out with this response that we, like you said, could be flip-floppy from Iran, saying we're not negotiating at all, to the president sending out now a detailed plan of action about what he wants from them for peace. If they say no, what are our next steps? Are we then putting boots on the ground, or what are we doing? I know you say we're going to bomb them into obliteration, but
there's certainly more military.
We'll have to go on and on for years.
There's more government we can kill. We can kill more people. We should not send boots on the ground. That would be a huge mistake. There's not the public support for that. B, I don't know how you can't do that without declaring war. We would need to have a congressional intervention at that point. C, it would be dramatically costly in terms of lives on our end. Right now, there have been some American service members killed. It's a small number of people who've suffered the blowback. Ground troops would definitely escalate the danger to Americans. That's not our fight. That's not our problem. Israel is taking the lead on this, and I've expressed some discomfort with how much we were not able to debate whether this war was necessary, because Israel made that determination for us. So if there's going to be ground troops committed to this, it better be their troops. It's not going to be American troops. Not without a vote. Not without the backing of the American people, which do not support this. There's no way. So I think Trump knows that. I I wish he would more firmly. He doesn't like to rule things out. He never says, well, I would never do X. Like, he just doesn't do that. So he's not going to rule out ground troops, but it would be a catastrophic decision to send them in. And I think he probably knows that.
I think the world, journalists especially, are interested in who the president is talking to. He said Jared Kushner, he said Rubio himself are having conversations.
Kushner and Witkoff are talking to the Iranians.
Right. And they're saying you're not talking to the Ayatollah, so who are you speaking with? It's like if I go to a producer and try to make a decision for Nexstar, well, got to talk to the CEO, right? You can't just talk to anyone in the company and decide how they're moving forward for quarter four.
But I don't think the Ayatollah is really running things right now.
I can. I'm Trump.
He's...
What basis do we have? The people speak, but you can't talk to a middleman
Oh,
about the
my
future
bad.
of a country if they're not actually in
Gotta
charge.
make sure I'm on
Especially
the
when
right
you haven't
screen,
gotten
yeah.
through the entire Revolutionary Guard to say that they're going to allow some revolter who's on the side of President Trump to be now the new leader of the country. I just think that's a long shot. So I think people want to know who exactly the president is speaking to or the team is speaking to, so we can understand how this peace plan plans to move forward. And also the concern is how this plan forward with Iran differs from Obama's Iran nuclear deal. He said he wants an entity that's non-biased to review how much uranium they're having and to make sure that they're not capable of making a nuclear bomb. And that's exactly what the Iran nuclear deal of 2015 did. So I'd like to know what the difference in number is. I mean, I think, like I said, 70% of the uranium was taken out of the country in 2015. So is it going to be 80? What's going to be I really need to see the numbers to know that we needed to go to war to get back to the point that we already were.
The problem is Iran always says that they're not building anything, but we're never allowed to inspect. So how the hell are we supposed to know? And it's just this weird stalemate of like, well, we don't know, but we're pretty sure they are,
A decade ago.
Well, and hopefully there's something better than just that, because as you said, we already had that deal in place, and Trump said it was a horrible deal, and that it could.
And I don't even really know what the details were for the Iran deal that he broke.
Be improved.
I should look into that before I really get into this.
So how would the deal, whatever deal we're going to make with them, be an improvement? We would like to know that.
We'll see. Up next, Democrats flipped a Florida state.
You're right. You're right. On to the next one. Gavin Newsom says he regrets calling Israel an apartheid state. Apartheid. Apartheid. I've heard both. So I don't know. Apartheid, I've heard more. Who knows? It's one of those. Now is he backtracking or what happened? He probably got threatened.
California Governor Gavin Newsom catching some flack from the left after seemingly backtracking his comments from earlier this month when he called Israel an apartheid state.
Now that comment, you may remember, came during a conversation with Pod Save America hosts Jon Favreau and Tommy Vietor. Take a listen.
The issue of Bibi is interesting because he's got his own domestic issues. He's trying to stay out of jail. He's got an election coming up. He's potentially on the ropes. He's got folks, the hard line, that want to annex the West Bank. I mean, Freeman and others are talking about it appropriately, sort of an apartheid state. They couldn't even, we're talking about regime change. For 2 years, they haven't even been able to solve the Hamas question.
Well, this week, the governor and presumed 2028 hopeful told Politico that he regrets saying that.
I deeply, deeply oppose Bibi Netanyahu's leadership, his opposition to the two-state solution, and deeply oppose how he is indulging the far right as it relates to what's going on in the West Bank.
Do you regret using the word apartheid to describe Israel?
I do in this context that I said it and I referenced why I used it, a Tom Friedman article in that same sentence where Tom used it in the context of the direction that Bibi is going.
Not the current
and
state.
the concern, correct.
Okay.
That disappointed some on the left who've been critical of Israel. Mehdi Hassan posting one word in response on X, sigh, and former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner echoing that writing in her own post. This is Governor Newsom is. He flip-flops.
Comments came as Democrats are feeling the waning support for Israel among their base, and that's apparently led some with potential 2028 ambitions to start distancing themselves from the Israel-aligned PAC AIPAC. According to a new article from Politico, Cory Booker, who received donations from AIPAC as recently as December, recently swore off more money from them, saying it was part of a broader pledge he made at the start of the year to swear off all PAC money going forward. Newsom himself said he's never accepted their money and, quote, never will. Josh Shapiro, J.B. Pritzker, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear also told Politico they haven't taken money from the group at all. Of course, AIPAC also sometimes it just runs advertisements against the other person, so even if you're not taking their money, there's only one way in which they operate. I'm not on the left at all. I'm not anything having to do with Mehdi Hassan, so he's upset that Newsom took back saying Israel's apartheid. I think it was wrong to say Israel was apartheid, so I obviously don't care that he took it back. I think he shouldn't have said it, and I would not describe them that way. I have criticisms of the government of Israel that I share with people on the left or people on the right, people all over the place, but I similarly I don't call it a genocide. What has happened in Gaza, it's conventional warfare against a terrorist group that has had a staggeringly high civilian casualty rate that I condemn and oppose, but I don't think it's a deliberate effort to wipe out a people. So there's where I disagree. You can tell me you disagree. I don't care.
You don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
No,
my feelings won't be hurt. I mean, I know people on the left.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
So listen,
apartheid, but
I think to me this is a little frustrating because Hakeem Jeffries, for example, one of the people that denounced taking any donations from AIPAC, just took donations.
So one way. I think there are words that end a conversation.
Okay,
and it's not helpful. Go ahead.
So Hakeem Jeffries, for example, someone who's denouncing taking any funds in the future from AIPAC, just took funds from them in December. And so I think with Democrats, it's really frustrating because it's not a problem to have supported or support Israel in any way to understand our allyship with the country.
But being fake about
AIPAC the boogeyman is really not the best way forward. How about laying out policies? And if you're actually not going to take their money, don't find secret ways to still work alongside them or take their money in the future or be someone who's taking their money throughout the entire war. And now just, since people are calling me out on it, let me change. I think that's the biggest issue that people have with Democrats. It's like, obviously, with that type of wavering, you're standing for absolutely nothing. It's why people were frustrated with Kamala when they asked the specific question, how would you handle our interaction with Israel differently and what's happening in Gaza differently? Or would you, from President Joe Biden? And she really couldn't give any differentiation. I think these are big things. And so if you are looking at what the party wants, and my biggest criticism of Democrats moving forward, or biggest suggestion is to talk to people on the streets more, see what people want, talk about the economy more. But part of that is just engaging with voters. If you're really trying to represent this base of people and you want to know what they're feeling about AIPAC support or Israel as a whole, or if it's rather more directed at Benjamin Netanyahu, then you should go out and talk to people that are voting for your party. And I think they're missing that conversation by just deciding, let's make a boogeyman. People want you to do more and actually see how they feel, as opposed to just find another boogeyman to point to and say, well, Republicans take money for that. Because Republicans are being very obvious and blatant, or people like John Fetterman are being very obvious and blatant that they support pretty much everything Israel does. They'll take AIPAC money. It doesn't bother them. And so just stand on something. Say what your stance is, as opposed to just saying, I'm not taking money. I'd rather hear Democrats say what they'd like to do differently.
Right.
Wow. Imagine that. That was the whole reason I walked away from the left to begin with, like 11 years ago.
How they would not or would like to support Israel, and in what ways, what capacity, what the future in 2028 when your president looks like for our allyship with Israel. Say those things.
That's why no Democratic candidate has been the person for the last 10 to 15 years, because nobody's trustworthy, because they're all fake. They're 100% fake. Even Bernie was just like, you couldn't really tell a lot of the times. And I've heard theories that he got threatened. I could see that. But even then, I wasn't a huge fan of his policies anyway. They were just, socialist, no thanks.
As opposed to, oh no, we don't take AIPAC money. We just took it 2 months ago. It's just kind of falls on deaf ears.
You know what? I agree with you. I agree with that entirely.
This is too friendly. He feels bad from yesterday. This is ridiculous. I quit. I'm out of here.
No, I agree. I say what they actually believe, and which
it's probably because he had a whopper freak out on her yesterday.
Gavin Newsom was doing that in his remarks about Israel, and
but then don't walk it back. If you feel that way, then just stand on it. Like every time you can't flip flop every time. Oh no, I just want to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu. How do you feel? In the Gavin Newsom, mind you, he said he never took AIPAC money ever. That's what he said.
If you really sincerely think Israel is an apartheid state, Well, then, doesn't it necessarily follow from that we shouldn't be giving them military aid? Like, isn't that right? I mean,
that would be a big deal,
support,
yeah.
So that makes me think you don't actually believe that, or because then you should come out and say, and we should not give them military aid. The military aid, we haven't talked about this in a while, but is the aspect of the Israeli policy I am most against, because I just don't agree with giving foreign aid, period. I wouldn't give it to anyone. If they want to, we basically discount and subsidize weapons that they buy from us at a discounted rate. I would let them buy weapons from us at the full market price. Anyone else who was our friends can buy them too, but no, we're going to charge them for it, not have taxpayers subsidize that. That would be my solution, and then no one can say we're propping it up, and it would be a win, I think, domestically and foreign policy wise. That's what I support.
Yeah, and I think, AIPAC are lobbyists that are trying to do their job, but perhaps there's a conversation about being able to be criticized that they need to just have amongst the lobbying organization. Like, what issues do you actually want pushed forward? It can't be every single thing that Netanyahu wants to do. I mean, that's not a policy. That's just blindly being obedient to a person. So what is it? Because even as we've heard a lot of people say, including Newsom, is that Netanyahu was kind of on the fence with people that actually live in Israel, whether they want him to continue to lead when his term's up, what's next. And that's on both sides of the aisle, that people want him to do more to take over territory or Gaza, and other people want him to do much less and think he went way too far. And so what does that mean for the future of leadership, and what's our role in that? I think we have a lot to answer to, but people giving flip-floppy responses doesn't help.
Do you know that there is now an AI pack? So there's going to be APAC and AI pack. There's going to be a lot of confusion over these terms on social media.
Oh,
AI
yes,
pack.
there is.
Okay. Was that amongst all the big social media companies? They're putting billions into that to make sure that all their policies pass, while they have somebody who's going to say yes to everything as long as he pays for this golden ballroom?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I summed it up right there. Okay. We have a lot more to talk about. Stay with us on Rising.
AI pack. That's funny. Yeah, people already don't know what they're talking about. Now it's gonna get 100-fold. They're gonna be they're gonna be overlapping that every day. Even politicians are gonna be overlapping that. All right, let's get into the Pete Begos. Well, from the headline, or from the title, it seems like an objective, honest debate. Is trans identity a diagnosis, symptom, or neither? This is his Spectrum Street epistemology. It's a lot to say. I think he just says on the street most of the time.
Declaring simply transgender identity, if they're not distressed about it, if they're living their life, is that something that would need a diagnostic code? Does it need some diagnosis to warrant treatment or research about?
When you come in contact with people with delusions, you're going to have to deal with that in some way. You're either going to have to challenge the delusion or go along with the delusion.
Gender dysphoria should be removed from the DSM. Move.
I don't really understand the DSM that well, so I don't know. I don't think I have a good opinion on this.
Okay, I'm going to flip.
Because it really does seem like there is such thing as gender dysphoria. Like, I've seen people try to talk about it. It's like, it seems like there's something there. Is it the act, like, is that the stopping point, gender dysphoria, or is there something beyond that?
A coin. Why don't you call it? We'll call it in-air heads. It is tails. So you get to decide who's going to go steel man the other side, you or her.
You don't want to steel man? I'll steel man.
Okay.
Good on her.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one's like, no way, man.
You have to listen to see if these arguments persuade you one side or the other. What would someone, and I know you don't believe this, you're standing on the absolutely disagree. Tell her the best argument you have for why someone would believe that.
Why somebody would...
Why someone would be standing on the absolutely disagree.
Because it's a mental health issue and it needs to stay in the mental health procedure.
Explain why.
Well, because the diagnostic statistical manual has all of the mental health issues that anyone can really think of that psychiatrists and psychologists use. And so if you take it out of there, then it may normalize gender confusion or gender dysphoria.
Okay, not you agree, but you understand?
Yep.
That's fair.
Okay, cool.
That actually is
What
a good
would be
argument.
the
That helped me figure it
response
out.
to that? Tell her.
I just don't think that feeling a type of way about your body or your gender is a mental health disorder. I agree that these people are crazy sometimes, but maybe crazy with other issues, and I don't think that it needs to be diagnosed specifically as gender dysphoria. I think the diagnosis of gender dysphoria is incoherent and doesn't make any sense.
The shit was that.
Using the specific word gender, which refers to, gender roles, masculinity, femininity. I don't really care how people feel about their gender, if that makes sense.
Not do you agree, but did you understand that claim?
I understood.
Okay.
I wasn't listening because something happened.
There is a better diagnostic term.
I'm going to back that up. My bad.
And doesn't make any sense in terms of using the specific word gender, which refers to, gender roles, masculinity, femininity. I don't really care how people feel about their gender, if that makes sense.
Not do you agree, but did you understand that claim?
I understood.
For the most part.
Everybody go back to the neutral. There is a better diagnostic term for distress about one's sex than gender dysphoria. Move. Oh, interesting. What would that be?
Well, gender distress, because I don't know what gender means, because it's a meaningless term, but we have delusion, depression, internalized homophobia, ASD, so autism. So all of these mental health issues are already baked into what they call gender dysphoria.
Do you agree?
Yes, and I would add there's also paraphilia. There is proto-gay. When the little proto-gay little kids
The fuck is that?
get confused about what sex they are generally grow up to be gay.
Proto-gay.
Proto-gay.
I have not heard, but I learn something every day.
Proto-gay. That's going to be like the new slander on the playground.
How come you're standing on this slightly agree?
I think maybe there's probably a better way to define what's going on. I think I probably would lean towards going back towards an identity disorder, not necessarily even including gender in it.
Okay, great. Let's do another one or another reset, please. Everyone go to the neutral. Trans identity should be repathologized. Trans identity should be repathologized. Move. If trans identity should be repathologized, then it must show up in the DSM. Move. You can think. You can think. It's a free country. In fact, we encourage you to think.
I'm actually not sure on all this. I wouldn't know where to stand because a lot of this lingo, I need to like revisit it. And I don't I don't know enough about the DSM. That's just establishing that a psychological disorder is what it is. Isn't that right? Am I getting that right? Or is that wrong?
Say it again.
If trans identity should be repathologized, then it must show up in the DSM.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually struggling with this one.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Tell her why you disagree.
Because trans identity isn't a thing. Trans identity is just a symptom of some other delusion. It might be paraphilia. It might be a child who's been indoctrinated into believing that they have a trans identity. It might be a younger child who, again, is going to grow up to be gay and is confused about what sex he or she is.
Which I think the majority of the time, if not like 99% of the time, that's what happens.
When they're younger, before they go through puberty.
Until we get to the point where we're just like baking into our society that all this shit is just normal when it's just... I can't believe we put this on kids. It's just beyond me. It's beyond me and it's disgusting.
They kind of figure it out then.
Okay, not you agree, but you understand?
I understand.
Can you repeat back to her what she just said?
Well, she said that transgender identity is not actually a mental health issue in itself. It's a symptom of something else.
Is that correct? Okay. Can you tell her why you're standing on that mat of absolutely agree?
Well, because the question asked is, does a transgender person have to be
pathologized?
Pathologized, sorry.
You got it.
Yes, because if somebody believes that they're transgender, I'm not saying that transgender is actually a thing, but if they believe it, we have to call it a mental health issue as opposed to something that is innate, immutable, and that you're born with.
Okay, not do you agree, but you do understand her argument?
I understand.
I'm almost like, aren't you guys in agreement then? I guess we're getting into the nitty gritty though, because it's two people who are kind of in agreement, but also like, what do you do with it? Is it like a mental disorder, or is it just a phase? I guess maybe is one way to put it.
Okay, ask her any question you want.
Would you agree that the trans identity then is a symptom and not an actual diagnosis?
Yes.
Okay, ask her any question you want.
Would you agree?
And I think that's why I'm bad at this sort of thing, because I don't know like psychological terms for like what, like diagnosis. I get it, but it's just like my mind doesn't go straight there.
That people truly believe that they're transgender and that they have to be looked at as having a mental health issue.
I would agree that people have delusions, and that could be one of them.
Okay, you're on the neutral. Is there anything you've...
So is a delusion a mental health disorder, I guess is the argument here, not so much on the trans issue.
heard here that would convince you to move to the slightly disagree or slightly agree?
There might be something to convince me to move to the slightly disagree, mainly because we know the DSM itself is to give clinicians the ability to clearly communicate about patients, right? So I think what we want to look for is whether or not trans identity would in any way, one, be something that would better clarify things for diagnosis, for research purposes,
Do you
or
have
not.
a question for her on that perhaps she could answer that might convince you to move?
Would there be something other than trans identity that we could have so that we can follow if patients are distressed and it's connected to a trans identity? Is there a way we could follow them in research? We could follow them in clinical practice?
We can follow it as a symptom, and a symptom can be a symptom of many things. If I have a rash, do I have measles or poison ivy? So, yes, I do think that it has to be
a good way to put it.
in the DSM. But how is it in the DSM? Is it a symptom or is it a diagnosis? If I have a headache, have I had too much to drink or do I have a tumor? There are these symptoms that people can have for a ton of different things.
Anything there convince you to move?
I think we'll move.
Okay, go
She
ahead.
nailed it, I think.
All right. Do you have a question for her to perhaps convince you to move back to the neutral? What could you...
And that's what bugs me. It's like there's so many, it's just this one big umbrella of, oh, you're probably trans. When it's just like there's a litany of things that could be wrong. And it's just like, nope, you're probably just trans. And I hate that movement really got a hold of the encouragement and then shaming everybody else for not going along with it. Because I knew from the get-go, I was like, dude, this is not right. And when they started going after kids, I was just, I couldn't believe that I was getting any pushback on it. I felt like I was losing my mind.
Ask her what evidence, data, or what have you could she provide you with that would perhaps move you to the left of the spectrum?
Okay, so that probably has to do with the DSM versus ICD codes, right? So DSM doesn't have its own codes. ICD is what they depend on for the coding. So knowing that already in 2022, the ICD-11 has said we're going to switch to gender incongruence, not even dysphoria. Is there something that perhaps could go in the DSM that would better clarify what we're dealing with as opposed to just open the floodgates for gender incongruence actually becoming the thing that we're tracking?
Okay, there was a lot there. Did you
Yes, there
understand
was.
that?
No.
Sort of. May I repeat it back, what you're trying to say? So you're worried about the fact that the ICD codes are now changed to gender incongruence, which is somebody who dresses differently than stereotypical sex, which I am worried about that too. Of course, we don't want that slide. We've had that slide from gender identity disorder to that gender dysphoria, which softens it, and now they're further depathologizing this, mental health issue. So I understand that, but I think that now I'm going really against all of my arguments, it sounds like, but I was the steel man.
You're free to move too. I mean, you don't have to stay there. You're free to move anywhere along the spectrum as well. If you've changed your mind about that question, you can move.
Well, I think I've changed my mind, so
okay, go ahead. What convinced you to change your mind?
Well, because I agree that it's a symptom. The trans identity is a symptom of something else. It always is 100%. Any child that adopts a trans identity, any adult that adopts a trans identity has a comorbid mental health issue. It's 100%.
Okay.
I feel like all of them are pretty much in agreement on this. There's not much variance in all what they're saying, so.
Is there anything you've heard?
But yeah, they're getting into the real stuff. That's what I appreciate about this. They're actually having an adult conversation about this rather than just like tiptoeing around feelings.
Here, would you like to ask anybody a question?
Well, I want to move.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, wow, oh my goodness, that's quite a move. Wow, okay, wow, that's fascinating. What convinced you to move there?
I don't think that trans identity is a coherent concept, and I think that there's so many different reasons why individuals decide that they want to identify as trans, and so to put it in the DSM and diagnose it as a mental health issue, I think would never make any sense, because it could be a young lesbian who's struggling with, going through puberty, struggling with her sexuality. It could be a man with a fetish. It could be somebody who has like a wide variety of mental health issues. It could be somebody who just doesn't like their body. It could be, a lot of these girls have trauma. They have histories of molestation, sexual assault. Some of it might just be body dysmorphia. So I think the DSM part is what made me move. Like, okay, pathologize it in certain contexts, but it can't be all one thing. So putting it in the DSM doesn't make sense to me.
What would convince you to move back to the neutral?
If we had a coherent definition of what we meant by trans or trans identity, but I think that's impossible because I think it's an incoherent concept.
Okay.
Wow.
Some
okay.
conceptions of trans identity
I was not expecting this.
Be pathologized. Move. Some conceptions of trans identity should be pathologized.
They're all very mature in their approach to this, and I'm just blown away by this. I was not expecting it. I thought there was going to be one just crazy liberal lady in the middle of it. At least one, right?
Interesting to me. Interesting. Why are you on the neutral? Tell them why you're on the neutral.
I need to better understand what we're talking about in terms of pathologizing.
You want to help her out?
Well, I had to assume some facts in the question also.
What did you assume?
Well, I assume that when someone tells you that they're transgender, that's a pathology statement right there, that it's saying that they're having a mental health issue.
Okay. Was that clear?
Yes.
What about pathologize as being regard or treat as psychologically unhealthy or unusual? What about that as a definition of pathologized?
That works.
Okay.
For me. So my question would then be someone declaring simply transgender identity, if they're not distressed about it, if they're living their life, is that something that would need a diagnostic code? Right? Does it need some diagnosis to warrant treatment or research about? And I would argue I'm kind of neutral on that. I don't really understand why it would be.
And that's fair. It's a libertarian approach.
Do you have
that's kind of how that's
for that,
basically
that
how I look at it.
Toss to her?
Well,
I don't know. But if you let it happen, then it's just going to happen where they're going to start grooming kids, and that's what we're seeing. So how do we deal with this? It's a good question.
have you ever seen the movie Arsenic and Old Lace? Okay, in Arsenic and Old Lace, Uncle Teddy, thought he was Teddy Roosevelt. And he was digging in the basement because he thought he was building the Panama Canal or digging the Panama Canal. Didn't bother anybody, didn't hurt anybody. But it was still a pathology. He couldn't function in society. Society had to adapt to him. And so
But what if he could function? So what if he held a job, but he just thought he was Teddy Roosevelt? What if he worked at the Teddy Roosevelt, Presidential Museum, and he went through and he explained everything about Teddy Roosevelt, and he earned an income and he was self-sufficient, but he just also suffered from the delusion that he was Teddy Roosevelt and built a tunnel in his basement?
He still has a pathology. Doesn't mean he needs to be hospitalized, maybe cannot be treated, but it is still a delusion. A delusion is delusion. And when you come in contact with people with delusions, you're going to have to deal with that in some way. You're either going to have to challenge the delusion or go along with the delusion. And so there's a societal factor there.
Do you have a question for that?
I would think because we're still talking about putting it in the DSM, right? So the idea that if someone is, for example, living in the world, proclaiming a trans identity, but doesn't have any distress about it, they wouldn't come see, let's say, a general practitioner or a psychiatrist about it, so it wouldn't warrant a diagnosis, nor would it warrant, certainly not treatment, if they're not pursuing treatment. And if you look at what the DSM is for, it is designed to be, according to the APA, very limited, right? This is just we look at a symptom cluster, and that symptom cluster, then if they meet criteria, the diagnosis applies, and then we use the coding to communicate in the best clear way we can about a patient and how we best treat or how we.
Okay.
So we have narcissistic personality disorder, and you meet people with that personality disorder, and they don't think there's anything wrong with them. They think it's wrong with you, right? So they may never get treated, but we still recognize that it is pathological. And number two, as far as the DSM goes, we like to think of it as an authoritative document, but I've spoken to some psychiatrists who basically told me, well, on the paraphilia end, different diagnosis, well, we thought maybe if this symptom kept going for 1 month, it was too short, a year, too long, so we settled on 6 months. This is not based on science or research.
Okay.
It's just a guess.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's true.
Her reasoning actually moves you to the other side. Why?
Well, as a psychiatrist who's not a fan of the DSM as the end-all and be-all, part of what made me shift this direction is that I loved your narcissistic personality disorder example, because we all have personalities and we all have very healthy responses under those categories. So a narcissistic response is not necessarily an unhealthy one if, say, you liked someone telling you, I love your green shirt. And you think, yes, I look really nice. But you don't go expect the whole world to then reinforce that. You just take it as a compliment and maybe pay it forward and tell someone else that. So it is a trait. So it's a personality trait, but it's not a disorder. It's not affecting functioning. It's not, you don't have a belief that the whole world should have that same belief. So I think that maybe made me shift a little bit further away from and I do believe we need maybe something in place of the gender dysphoria that's there that I'm not thrilled with. If we leave a blank space, we're going to leave space for the incongruence. But if we fill it in with something that's not clear, it's going to create, I think, more patients being harmed.
Hey, did you know only half of you watching are subscribed? If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button to keep the videos coming. Thanks.
It is crazy to see about like all the other countries pulling back on this stuff now, because I think for the longest time they were just shamed into accepting that it was okay for doctors to be doing these sort of operations, and then when you start to find out what the age groups were, it's like, oh my God, and there were like 15, 16-year-olds you guys were working on. What the fuck? Like, that's not okay. And it's, yeah, for several years. I remember either people would say that you're not compassionate, or they would just deny it was happening. It was one of the two. And yeah, again, like I said, I thought I was going crazy. But it's cool to see that people are really starting to speak out and like have real conversations about like what's actually going on rather than just catering to the trans movement, because yeah, it's a shit movement. Let's see. We got 40 minutes. Oh yeah. Collab Hammer.
People have no idea what they do, and then they're just not patriotic. It's like, dude, you're literally not.
This guy's hilarious. He does financial audits of people and basically just screams at them. It's because it's hilarious.
Contributor. You should be the most patriotic person. You contribute nothing.
I mean,
you contribute literally nothing. You've only been a taker, and yet you're the one that doesn't like the country.
I would.
Then the
leave
one
if
that
I
gives
could.
everything is the one
Sounds
that
right.
likes it. Leave for where?
Anywhere. I used to live in Germany. I'd rather
Grass
live
is
there.
always greener. What would you be doing in Germany?
I could still be an artist there.
Somebody that we talked about quite a few times on this show, and this is due in large part to the fact that even though his show is a financial show called Financial Audit, he ends up tending to get into territory that is often related to what we talk about, which is politics, culture-related stuff, and of course, because his show is like inadvertently the biggest exposer of VA disability fraud that I've seen in my entire life. And by the way,
There's
while a
of
lot of
that.
people are going
Quite
to
a
show
few of
you
those.
the clips of the girl that says, oh my God, I'm not patriotic, I hate the evil bad orange man, I want to leave the United States of America, and all sorts of other stuff that are standard fare among these blue-haired feminist types. The thing that I also just want to focus on is the fact that both of these individuals are benefiting from the VA disability system. This blue-haired girl is getting her college covered because both of her parents were in the military, and they're both claiming 100% disability.
So I'm an art student.
Of course you
so I get money from the VA to pay for
Why?
because both my parents are 100% disabled. So I have Chapter 35.
Okay. So you don't pay anything for college.
Nope.
And you're using that
Wow.
opportunity for a art degree.
Yep.
Now, we don't know that
And
both
you
of
hate
her
the
parents
country.
are not disabled.
You get everything
I'm not
for
trying to say
free.
that this is an instance of froward, as we like to call it, for froward disability, for froward.
Yeah, you get everything for free and you hate the country. It's like that's just the Marxist mindset. I swear to God. No sort of gratitude.
Froward. But again, it is notable that the fact that they claim this 100% disability ends up covering huge portions
What would the Froward?
of her college tuition, which of course is something that she uses for an art degree. And again, she is getting this art degree without having to take out as many student loans as maybe you would or your kids would if you were not in the situation where you were benefiting off of this particular program. But of course, what we find out about 15 minutes after we hear about her VA disability story is that he is actually getting about $2,070 according to himself for VA disability, despite the fact that where he would have gotten injured doesn't appear to make any sense.
I think my net is around 5,800 a month, and then I also get disability from the VA.
Why do you get disability? You were in the military?
I was in the Navy for 2 years.
What'd you do?
Okay, he went to school and the Navy paid for it and then he got out medically.
I was Naval Reserve, and then
And what's your disability? Other than your
depression
hairline?
and anxiety.
What's that net again? 5,500?
5,800 for the salary, and then the money that I get from the VA is around like 2,070.
So joined the Navy for 2 years, goes to school for the entirety of those 2 years, and then leaves the Navy early due to the fact that he's on disability.
Why?
And again, continuously uses the military in order to pay all these different benefits for a guy that, again, is constantly pursuing all these different various degrees. Now, of course, these two individuals that are great beneficiaries of the taxpayer, and again, if you're somebody who's actually disabled, and if you're somebody who served the country and went to war and maybe you're a little bit scammy in your disability. I don't feel the same way about you than I do about these people that never leave base, or in this case, never leave the classroom and somehow are getting my taxpayer money. But considering the size of VA disability benefits in terms of the federal budget, it's something that we got to talk about. It's something that eventually we're going to have to look into, because obviously something is going on when so many guests on Caleb Hammer's channel end up claiming these benefits, making a crap ton of money for doing absolutely nothing.
It is amazing. They go on there. It's just one big confession, it seems like.
And their story of their injury is not a story of a combat injury, is not really a story of even an on-base physical injury. It's something like anxiety and depression and maybe things they brought with them into the military that they're now getting paid for life as soon as they leave the military. But again, this isn't exactly what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk about is how these individuals who benefit greatly from the taxpayer obviously are very anti-American. They're very pro-feminism and whatnot, and they want to take down the United States of America and flee this country. Again, the country that is providing them all this free crap that they do not pay into to cover. Now, this is what we're going to talk about, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money.
Give Anna the money. Okay.
That makes sense.
Are you not patriotic?
With blue hair, you think I'm patriotic?
You can still be patriotic and be wrong about
Why
economics.
would I be patriotic?
You see how hard it is to talk to these people? It's like, why are you like this? Just why? Why are you like this? Like, you don't have to be like this. This is completely optional, by the way.
Patriotic when we're spending more money on bombs than we are for like social justice or like social programs.
We spend 50% of the federal spending on social programs.
Like what?
Social programs, Medicare, Medicaid, mandatory spending, SNAP benefits, veteran benefits.
You mean the SNAP benefits that people just got taken away from them?
You think everyone just got taken off SNAP?
Most people
Everyone.
did.
You think the majority just got taken off SNAP?
Yes.
Our military spending is 10 to 20%.
And
the
that's
bombs you're freaking out about, 10 to 20%. It's egregious. We spend 50% on social programs.
I'm a military kid, and I can tell you that is not needed.
So it's so funny when these people end up saying, look at me, look at the color of my hair. There's absolutely no way that I'm patriotic with this hair color, because again, it just goes to show you that these people who supposedly are...
It's all about image. That's all they care about. It's just about, what do I look like? What am I portraying? Not about who am I actually as a person. It's what am I portraying? What am I showing people? It gets exhausting.
Doing things like dyeing their hair in order to express their individuality, or actually doing so in order to fit in with other people that match their ideology.
Bro,
Yeah.
You literally...
It's peacocking. It's so you're fitting in with your group. And man, they really picked a lot of weird attributes, didn't they?
Just got the...
It's like their character creation menu was they just hit random. They're like, okay, is that woke? Let's do it. Clusterfuck the shit out of it.
Information that you were just wrong, and yet you're still doubling down. We don't spend the majority on bombs.
Okay, maybe it's not the majority, but it's
it's not
too
even
much.
close to the majority. It's not even a quarter.
It's far too much.
Okay, you could advocate for that, but that all of a sudden doesn't mean... You just said we don't spend anything on social. That's where like more than half of our money goes. Like, what are you talking about?
And come to find out, a lot of it's fraud. Thank you, Nick Shirley.
I think it needs to be more
As
into
usual,
social
you're
programs.
uninformed about everything.
I think it needs to be more
And
into
then you're
social
just not
programs.
patriotic. What do you mean? We spend more than like anyone.
And that's really what it is they're completely uninformed about everything. They just have a few tidbits about something, and then they get pissed off, and then they rage, and then they grab a sign and go protest. Usually a sign that's already pre-made and bought and paid for by Soros.
Yes, you're an NPC. You're admitting to being an NPC. We can all see it for ourselves. It's absolutely embarrassing. And again, these people know absolutely nothing about which they speak. Because here you have a person who says that the United States of America needs to spend way more on social programs. And she doesn't see the spending on social programs. And that is something that she finds to be disgusting. But the thing is, as Caleb Hammer points out, most of the federal budget goes to social programs. Most of it is mandatory spending on things like Medicare, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And in addition to that, we also have services like disability, to which these people are both the beneficiary of, and yet they demand more. But at the same time, this is somebody who, although she has some entrepreneurial kind of instincts, is not actually contributing anything in terms of tax dollars to the system. So essentially what this person wants is to get more out of the system than she puts in forever, and for that to be on the rest of you or those evil rich people, even though again, these are the people that are leeching off the system and of course making terrible financial decisions. And it's really unfortunate because you have this guy right here who says that he pulls in about $110,000, which is a pretty good income. I believe they live in Texas. They had to move.
I was
going
gonna say, I was like, he doesn't have a bad income already, and then he's getting the extra like 2,000 on top of it, so you should be doing okay, right? Like, how are you falling into more debt?
After he was laid off with the federal workers that were laid off, which is one of the reasons why they hate the evil bad orange man. But the thing is, this might be the exact kind of person that you would want to lay off from the federal government, as Caleb very not nicely expresses.
Why'd you guys move here, by the way, from DC?
I lost my job.
Yeah.
I got
Trump
fired in
fucked him.
the federal firings.
Colton
that
told me you
happened.
guys blame Trump.
Yeah, Trump f***ed him in the ass.
Oh, for the job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you worked for the federal government?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. I appreciate you getting fired. I would like to not spend as much.
His face, like, you just said it. You just said it.
In taxes, what the why do we employ so many people?
I mean,
it makes no
working at a
sense.
federal research.
It's true. Doge should have. It bugs me that it didn't last that long. It lasted like a few months, and then they had some sort of weird scuffle, and then it's just gone. And they were taking care of a lot, and it's like, oh, they didn't find enough. It's like they were still working on it though. We needed to give it more time. We only gave it a couple months, didn't we?
Lab that provides goods for society, I would say, is a good thing.
Well,
What's
in
for
general,
society your defense?
Like, in Doge would have probably come across a lot of the stuff that Nick Shirley's coming across, because it's not that hard. Or at least Nick Shirley could have been like, Nick Shirley could have been like, hey, dude, hey, guys, look, Doge, check that out. And then it would have started a roller coaster.
okay, so Trump fired you, I guess. The federal government was the highest laid off sector, but I mean, it does overemploy dramatically.
Yeah, so
it shouldn't be a jobs program.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to explain in greater detail.
He sounded so disappointed. Yeah.
Based on listening to this podcast in its entirety, which, by the way, will be linked in the description of this video.
Oh, I just clicked back, didn't I? Ah, jeez. Oh, jeez. Go forward.
Love when people have no idea what they do, and then they're just not patriotic.
Where were we?
Fortunate, because you have this guy right here who says going to be to my benefit, but even when his wife appears to have a business that could, maybe grow and actually produce an independent income, this guy wants her to stop what she's doing and actually end up pursuing her degree, which is an art degree, which is obviously not going to benefit her all that much in terms of marketable skills. But the thing is, this guy was working for the federal government, so I believe that part of the reason why he is so degree focused is because, unlike regular people who borrow from the student loan program, if you work from the federal government and you make a certain amount of payments over a certain amount of time, you can get some of those loans forgiven. So I think part of the reason he was so bitter about being laid off by the federal government is because he intended to pass further costs on to the American taxpayer, again, rather than, actually pay.
Yeah, he sounded disappointed when they're just like, no, that's, you shouldn't. He's like, no, well, then how am I going to get my money?
For the things that he spent.
Leeches, man. I have a hard time asking for like $1 from somebody, let alone like doing this type of shit. It is amazing.
Himself, which is one of the reasons why he's on financial audit.
I would say that at the end of the day, we need the money from the VA for their schooling, and that brings in more than Like, this is the opportunity to finally get their degree. They won't get this opportunity again.
Now, to be clear, these are two dots that I'm connecting. This is me speculating, but it's very interesting to see somebody be so angry at the current political administration while not knowing anything about the policies that they're speaking about.
About the current political administration. That's the thing. It's just like, you're always so angry, but you're so uninformed at the same time. It always goes hand in hand every single time. And it's like, this one girl I used to go to school with, she was out protesting, and her sign said, "My rage can't fit," or my outrage can't fit on this sign, or something to that effect. And it was like the cringiest shit I've ever seen. I was like, oh boy. But she knows just very, very little about current situations.
Demand all this additional government welfare spending while they're quite literally leeching off the government teat themselves. And in addition to that, they're purporting to be feminists. This woman identifies as a they them, which again is a struggle for Caleb at a different part of this podcast.
I'm assuming there means yours.
Yes.
Are we on the they them pronoun pipeline?
I mean, I have blue hair.
We're not surprised.
Yeah.
Should I ask you yours, or do we?
I'm kind of fine with anything.
Okay, great. I love that. Sure, why not? Okay. So, art degree, they, them, and blue hair, we get it. But here's the thing: if their business is making $50,000 without her can I be like?
He's like, can we start over?
Name the phobic of your choice. I don't care. Can I be phobic for a second? Can't you just be her for a second so I could just speak? So I could just say words?
I don't mind any.
Thank you. I just want to be able to talk without doing equations in my brain. Oh my gosh. I went to school. I learned him and her.
And of course, this guy, the male feminist, has the most woke answer, the most annoying answer that we end up hearing from all of these types that spend way too much time online, which is they, them is in Shakespeare, by the way.
Do what you want to do.
You also use they, them when you don't know the gender of the person.
I mean, they, them goes back to Shakespeare.
He's going to blow a gasket here.
In what context?
Even though, again,
I was hoping he was just going to lose his shit. It's like, guys, we're talking financial stuff here.
Absolute idiot. Despite the fact that you're going to university time and time again, you're not Shakespeare. We're not in the Shakespeare times. So shut the hell up with the, oh, they, them is in Shakespeare, therefore it's perfectly normal, when you're asking people to do stuff that is completely abnormal. But the thing that Caleb ends up finding out through him interrogating these individuals is that the performative feminism, or the outward feminism with the blue hair and the political beliefs, is just that. As many people have found out who have dated feminists, they're feminists in the streets, but behind closed doors, in the sheets, if you will, they want to be controlled. So what we end up finding out is that this girl, again, all about her women empowerment and whatnot, is essentially subservient to everything that her husband demands of her. Again, very traditional for people who are going out of their way to present as untraditional. And again, she is allowed to become a stripper under this guy's watch until they have a kid. Then she has to switch to OnlyFans, and he wants her to keep doing that as a business. But her actual business that doesn't involve taking her clothes off, this is something that this guy is vehemently against. And one of the things that's absolutely hilarious about these individuals is the fact that, of course, this woman who has a child, unfortunately, is also a perpetual child, because as Caleb Hammer is hitting them on their relationship, she needs a little bit of a break. She needs to go to a safe space.
You went into stripping in OF. You have a choice? That was the only entrepreneurship he actually encouraged. What do you mean choice? There's no choice. He's not giving you a choice. Where's your choice? You don't have a choice. This isn't feminism. This isn't helping you out as a woman. You being a leader. You being a leader as a woman and pulling out. Nah, this is on you, buddy. I'm bringing up the shit that you're doing that she's seeing for the first time, and it's hitting her.
Oof.
There's no choice. He's not giving you a choice. And I don't want you to be all of a sudden convinced that you have a choice. It might be in love from his perspective, but it's from a domineering, perverted worldview.
I need a break.
Okay, take a break. Take a break. Here we go.
which again just goes to show you that these are people who should not be able to vote in terms of their IQ level, yet their vote counts just as much as yours, and they are very much into politics, even though again they don't bother to learn anything about it. In fact, this girl actually had a Sarah Palin moment where he asked her what her sources were, and she couldn't name any actual source.
I would like to be more informed on it.
Why have an opinion before being informed? I don't know. I try to not allow myself to.
That's-
We all fail on that as humans.
Thank you, Caleb. That's kind of where it's like everybody's asking me how I feel about certain things like the day of or the day after they happen. I'm like, my rule is at least give it a week before you even consider having an opinion on something. Like the ice stuff, like Daniel Pretty, whatever his name was. That was the type of thing where it was like immediate in the moment. I was like, oh, this looks really bad. And then later on, oh, well, there's the details. So there you go.
Mainly I tried.
Same thing with Renee Good. It's just like, no, she was just passing through. No, all of these narratives are just lies because in the moment, it always looks really bad. And especially with the bullshit coming from the left, it's always lies. That's why I can't stand the left. Is they never work on the truth. They always have to lie to you. And it's just like, all right, do you still want to be a part of that after you know how much they lie to you, or do you just walk away from them? Because I chose to walk away. I couldn't take it anymore. After a couple lies, I was like, no, you guys, it's not, if you're not after the truth, then what are we doing?
To stay as informed, but I forget a lot of the things that I read if I like, and I don't.
Where do you read?
A lot of like sources from like I'm big. I was a psychologist for a while.
Where do you read your information?
Mostly journals.
What journals?
Depends on what we're talking about.
From where?
Mainly from government sites.
Government sites.
It's so embarrassing to see this, and I want to be 100% clear, even though we are seeing a lot of the times, especially in my videos, reacting to Caleb Hammer videos, a lot of left-wing people that are in these dire financial straits.
He's one of the most entertaining dudes on the internet, and he does financial audits.
While making excuses and pinning it on the Trump administration, there are people who are on the right that can't take responsibility for themselves that end up on these shows. It's just typically we don't get into these crazy shouting matches and whatnot, and part of the reason for that is because the evil bad orange man is president, and as we all know, Trump bad.
Trump simply hearing Trump over and over again.
So obviously that is just going to be more common now because, again, the anti-Trump people are all more obsessed with politics than, of course, the pro-Trump people were when Joe Biden was in office. That being said, we also have, again, another string of terrible positions that these people come up with, and this ends up arriving randomly when the issue of data centers is brought up, and I think Caleb Hammer ended up bringing it up because he knew that they were going to be automatically opposed to them, and then he starts trying to explain to them how valuable they are, how they're actually building out power infrastructure, and how the short-term increases in power bills are due in large part to regulations that make it more difficult for them to add new grid capacity, and in fact it takes 3 years on average in many of these blue states, and these people know absolutely none of that.
What's the argument? Because Texas is leading in data center construction. What's the argument?
Well, the fact that they're bad for the environment.
Okay, why are they bad for the environment?
Well, for one, they use a lot of the fresh water, and we're starting to have a deficit
they use less than 0.5% of all fresh water in the United States. Lawn maintenance in this country uses 2.5% of all fresh water.
I also don't think lawn maintenance is a good thing either.
Very good. Almonds in California alone use over 1% of all the United States water. We have now closed system loops in data centers that barely use any water, and now data centers that are being built by Amazon, Google are actually net contributors to water. The electricity, that's a valid argument. But guess what? 70% of the U.S. entire electrical grid is near retirement because we haven't invested in it in 20 years at all. The only reason we're even having that conversation is because of data centers. In data centers, many states are requiring them to have on-site electricity generation, and any connectivity to the overall network and generation being powered by the network, they have to pay for 100% of the cost. That actually happened from the Trump administration with Democratic governors and Republican governors.
Now, I know there's a rise of populism on the right side of the political spectrum, so you'll actually hear some of these same exact arguments from people on the right, but these are inherently left-wing arguments. These people are using environmentalism and all sorts of other things that the left typically uses in order to stall out and bog down the American economy. But what Caleb said right there about how it's crucial for economic growth, how these people are actually improving the energy grid, and how everything about water usage is actually completely overstated as they're building systems that, again, are not reliant on the tap. But all of that gets waved away because these people know the approved talking points, which is environment, then energy, then water. And again, you could flip them all the way around, but they're the same talking points that this inorganic movement against these data centers that's cropped up around the country is promoting. And make no mistake about this, the reason these are getting so much attention is largely due to the fact that enemies of the United States of America, both from without, aka China, and from within, are trying to militate the population and the media against these things because, again, they want us to fall behind economically. Like, that is the goal, to push the decline of the United States of America, so data centers are becoming the ultimate villain. But that's the thing, these people are not actually thinking and processing information. They're about as intelligent as that portable hard drive I have over there, although the information on that significantly more useful. But essentially what they are is people that you download the current talking point into, and then when you need them to pull it up, they plug in. You get a little bit of a dial-up tone.
That's the whole NPC meme where it's just like they're taking one chip out, where it's like ice out. Now it's just like, what is it now? Is it Iran? I guess. Oh yeah, it was pro-Hamas. That's what it was. The street marches are pro-Hamas. That's what the left's gotten into now.
If we're being perfectly honest.
That's how you, it is amazing. You can get them to march for anything. You really can, as long as you say it's part of their movement. You could literally get them to march for anything.
And then they regurgitate the information that the TV or the internet or whatever outlet or whatever friend told them as if it's a unique and special thought. And a perfect example of that was the Shakespeare talking point. Again, a standard.
Yeah, that was, it was just a tidbit that he brought up. It was just like a woke progressive tidbit. It's like, oh, I know something.
Left-wing talk.
You could tell he was kind of, he was a dum-dum. And I'm a dum-dum. I know my type.
Talking point that they did not come up with on their own. They probably never read Shakespeare. They're just regurgitating it to you guys out there in the audience. We also had a similar thing with the ice bad. Oh my god, ice. Oh my god, ice concentration camps. And by the way, that was to deflect off of the Uyghur concentration camps in China.
Concentration camps in Western China. That's a system I want to replicate.
We have concentration camps here.
I was literally talking about a concentration camp, you know, where you go for a week to learn and focus. Oh man.
Re-education camps where we force people at gunpoint to learn our culture.
Do you know what's going on?
You're actually going to consider
camps that we have here,
bro, at gunpoint, learning our culture and forgetting everything about their religions. You think we do that?
Yes.
I would argue that Chinese development of infrastructure is much better than ours.
Yeah, you know how? Because people can't stand up and speak for their rights, their property rights. You want that? You want us to be able to plow New Braunfels to the ground to build high-speed rail between Austin and San Antonio?
Okay, that might be a hot take, but actually I am so pro that
I'm pro. And now we have the data center issue. And the thing is, even though, again, bad financial management is not a left-wing thing, you guys out there on the right need to get a hold of your finances as well. Stop overspending on cars and whatnot. In reality, what we end up seeing is that the kind of left-wing attitudes of shifting fault, shifting blame, it's never on you, it's always on the system, definitely lend more to this than other types of ideologies, and that is what is fully on display here. And this is what Caleb Hammer exposes, as well as VA fraud in almost every episode, it seems like. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Caleb Hammer taking it to these lefties.
Well, I'm going to get out of here and go get some food. And then I'll probably come back and finish up this Theo